to the 8th chapter of the book of Revelation. As we continue this study in this prophetic book about the future, God tells us what the future is going to be in the book of Revelation. Now, we've come to that period in the Bible, in the book of Revelation, known as the tribulation, or the wrath of God, the wrath of the Lamb. At any moment, the trumpet could sound, and believers who are dead and are alive will be caught up to be with the Lord. We call that the rapture. After God's people are taken out, God's people are called the salt of the earth by Jesus. He calls us salt and light. So when God's people, who are salt and light, are taken out of the earth, then comes darkness and decay and death. And so those left behind will enter a time called the tribulation. Then the seals of judgment are opened. As you see in the chart that I gave you, and by the way, I have 2 left. If you'd like to have one of these, I have them available. What this chart does is show you the sequence of events that will take place from what we've been studying, and I think it'll help you. Okay. Now, we've already looked at 6 of those seals that have been broken in our last study. Now remember, there's going to be 7 seals and 7 trumpets and 7 bowls or vials, which is 21 judgments coming upon this earth. And so we've already looked at 6 of those seals that were broken. And you remember the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, the white horse, the red horse, the black horse, and the pale horse. All of them, remember, speak of war and famine and plagues and death. We've seen the martyrs that were beheaded for the cause of Christ, and we've seen ecological disasters from the heavens that will come upon the earth during this time. And now in chapter 8, we come to the opening of the 7th seal. And that 7th seal the Bible calls silence. Why is it called silence? Well, look in chapter 8 and verse 1. It says, when he opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven about half an hour. Silence. Now, one man read that and said, does that mean there won't be any women in heaven? I didn't say that. That guy said that. Oh, I think we better move on. Now, normally you don't find silence in heaven. Heaven is a time of joy. It's a time of praise. It's a time of adoration with harps and music. But we're going to see trumpets sounding and judgments coming. But here, there's a silence in heaven for half an hour. What is this silence? It's an ominous, almost deafening silence. It's the lull before the storm. It's like a tornado. You know how the sky turns greenish and the ground is peppered with hail. And all of a sudden, it becomes quiet. There's silence. Then suddenly a roar and the crash of destruction of a tornado. This is the time when heaven seems to hold its breath. Everything is quiet. There's silence in heaven. I've heard preachers say there's silence because they are shocked by the people who are not there. That's a bunch of bunk. It's just not true. There's 30 minutes of silence in heaven because God shows us who are there with Him what He's about to do on this earth, when we are absolutely stunned and shocked at the level of devastation and judgment coming upon this world. Think about that. It's a time when heaven holds its breath. Then we see some trumpets. They're about to sound. Now look in verse 2. And I saw the 7 angels which were before God. Ordinary angels. These are special angels. In fact, Gabriel is one of those angels. And I saw the 7 angels which stood before God, and to them were given 7 trumpets. Now you're going to see 7 trumpets right here. That is, hail, fire, blood, a burning mountain, a star named wormwood, cosmic darkness, locusts, devilish horsemen, and then worship. Angels are going to be involved in the tribulation, as you're going to see in this study. God said He has given His angels charge over you. If you belong to Jesus, you have a guardian angel watching over you to protect you, to defend you, to deliver you. And if you're not saved, you're not going to have an angel to carry your soul to heaven when you die. But you will have an angel to carry your soul to hell. So there's an angel in your future. And he's watching you right now to see what decision you make. And that angel is reporting your decision to God Himself. Now these 7 angels are about to sound these trumpets of judgment. Look, if you will, in verses 3 through 5. Then another angel, having a golden censer, came and stood at the altar. He was given much incense that he should offer it with the prayers of all the saints upon the golden altar, which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense with the prayers of the saints ascended before God from the angel's hand. Then the angel took the censer, filled it with fire from the altar, and threw it to the earth. And there were noises, thunderings, lightnings, and earthquake. This is a horrible, awful time upon the earth. I'm so glad those of us who know Jesus are not going to be here. An angel takes a censer of incense, which represents the prayers to God. But this time he moves from the golden altar over here to the brass altar of judgment and fills it with fire, and he flings it down upon this earth. Wouldn't that be an interesting ministry? Whoosh, let me light you up. And then there were voices talking, thundering, sounding, lightnings flashing, and earthquakes shaking. Because the prayers of God's saints are powerful, even in a time of great persecution. If you belong to Jesus, you have power. Don't ever see yourself as a second-rate anybody. You're a child of King Jesus. You have angels surrounding you. You're somebody. And then you need to think like it and act like it. That's who you are. And you need to praise God because of it. Now, what does all this represent? It represents the tribulation judgments that are going to come and intensify with the sounding of these trumpets. Now, what we're going to do tonight is listen to 5 of these trumpets, because that's all we're going to have time for. And we're going to move into the 9th chapter as well. But we're going to look at 4 of these trumpets and then slow down with the 5th trumpet. So are you ready? Let's begin. First of all, the first trumpet sounds. The first trumpet sounds. And there comes judgment on the land and things that grow upon the earth. Look, if you will, in verse 7. The first angel sounded, and hail and fire followed, mingled with blood. And they were thrown to the earth, and 1/3 of the trees were burned up, and all the green grass was burned up. Now, what could cause this? Well, a nuclear explosion could cause it. A devastating fire in the atmosphere, the elements melting with fervent heat, that could cause it. I don't know what God's going to use to cause this, but whatever it is, it destroys the vegetation on earth. But is there a deeper meaning here? A symbolic meaning. Now remember, the book of Revelation is filled with symbolism. What does grass speak of symbolically? What do trees speak of symbolically? Put this verse down. It's Isaiah chapter 40 and verses 6 and 7. All flesh is grass, and all this loveliness is like the flower of the field. The grass withers, the flower fades, but the breath of the Lord blows upon it. Surely the people are grass. You see that? Surely the people are grass. The grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of God endures forever. And so in the Bible, grass speaks of people, and trees speak of rulers. The king of Babylon is spoken of as a tree. And even God's people, the righteous, are spoken of as a tree planted by the river of living water. And so, more than devastation upon the green growing things, which may be literal and true, there is a greater symbolic meaning here, that there's coming a devastation on humankind. Number 2, the second trumpet sounds. And there's going to be judgment not only upon the land, but upon the oceans and things that live in the sea. Look, if you will, in verse 8 and 9. Then the second angel sounded, and something like a great mountain burning with fire was thrown into the sea. And 1/3 of the sea became blood. And 1/3 of the living creatures in the sea died, and 1/3 of the ships were destroyed. What is this? Could it be a volcano? A mountain burning with fire? Could this be some super volcano pouring its sulfuric acid, this sulfuric lava into the sea? It could be. But beyond that, there is a symbolism here. A mountain in the Bible speaks of kingdoms. Babylon, modern-day Iraq, is spoken of as a mountain. Put this verse down. Jeremiah 51, chapter 51, verse 25. Let me read it to you. Behold, I am against thee, O destroying mountain, saith the Lord, which destroys all the earth. I will stretch out my hand upon thee, talking about Babylon, and roll you down from the rocks, and I will make you a burnt mountain. Sound familiar, doesn't it? It may be speaking about some Babylonian invasion on humankind. So if the mountain stands for kingdoms, what do the seas stand for? Well, again, in Isaiah chapter 57, verse 20, it says, for the wicked are like the troubled sea. Do you see that? For the wicked are like the troubled sea when it cannot rest, whose waters cast up mire and dirt. And so the second trumpet sounds, and there's judgment upon the oceans and things that live in the sea. Now the third trumpet sounds, and we see judgment upon the rivers and men that walk upon the earth. Look at verses 10 and 11. Then the third angel sounded, and a great star fell from heaven, burning like a torch. And it fell on a third of the waters and on the springs of water. The name of the star is wormwood. A third of the waters became wormwood, that is poison. And many men died from the water because it was made bitter. Not only is the ocean polluted, now the fresh waters and rivers and streams are polluted. Now, could this be an asteroid that would cause devastation and poison the water and cause people to die? But we're going to see also that Satan himself was symbolized as a star fallen from heaven, and those who fell with him. Remember also that water represents people. In Revelation, you might want to turn to this. Hold your place there. Turn to Revelation chapter 17 and verse 15. And he said to me, the waters which you saw where the harlot sits are people, and multitudes, and nations, and tongues. The word tongues is translated languages. So there's a symbolism here. Here is a poisonous lamp, a great star with brilliant light falling upon the earth and poisons the water. Now we come to the fourth trumpet. And now there's judgment not only on the earth, the oceans, and the rivers, but in the sky. Now look, if you will, in verses 12 and 13. Then the fourth angel sounded, and a third of the sun was struck, a third of the moon, a third of the stars, so that a third of them were darkened. A third of the day did not shine, likewise the night. And I looked, and I heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe! Woe! Woe to the inhabitants of the earth, because of the remaining blasts of the trumpet of the three angels who were about to sound. This angel cries, Woe! Because it's getting more intensified, the devastation upon the earth. The light and the moon, the sun and the stars are darkened, they're blackened by a third part. If there has come a super volcanic eruption, if there's been nuclear explosions, can you imagine how the face of the sun, the moon, and stars would be darkened? Would be blotted out. And men who love darkness rather than light will have their fill of darkness. Now let's slow down a bit as we come to the fifth trumpet. So this fifth trumpet sounds, and there comes on an invasion from the bottomless pit, from the abyss, from the deep. Now, besides all these other things happening, now a bottomless pit is open. And we move now into the 9th chapter, and look, if you will, in verse 1. Then the 5th angel sounded, and I saw a star fallen from heaven to the earth. To him was given the key to the bottomless pit. Now, when you see this 5th trumpet, we can understand why the angel cried, "Woe! Woe! Woe to the inhabitants of the earth." We can understand why Jesus said there has never been a time like this, when the bottomless pit, the abyss, is opened, because coming out of the abyss is an exceptionally vile, horrible, demon spirits coming upon the earth. I don't want to be here when this happens. Now, I want to mention several things to help us to understand how vile these demon spirits are. Number one, they are degenerate demon spirits. Degenerate. Now, all demons are wicked, but these are in a class by themselves. These demons that are so vile and so wicked, God has thrown them into a deep, dark, bottomless pit, and now they're released. You remember the man in the Bible whose name was Legion, who was full of demons? And Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" And he said, "My name is Legion, for we are many." Remember that? And he and the demons begged Jesus to not send them out into the deep. Now, if you have the King James Version, the word deep is the same word translated bottomless pit. They said, "No, don't send us out to the bottomless pit." They didn't want to be there in the company of these other demons. That's how wicked they were. I believe that's why Simon Peter was what he was talking about in second chapter, or in 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 4, when he said, "God spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell and delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved unto judgment." These are doubly dangerous. Can you imagine if worldwide all the prison doors were just flung open, and all the perverts and the murderers, the rapists, the thieves were just turned loose? And imagine also no police to control them. How would you like to live in a world like that? Well, you refuse Jesus, and you'll see what it's like. Only 1,000,000 times worse when this pit of hell is open. So number one, they are degenerate. Number two, they are darkening demon spirits. Darkening demon spirits. Look in verse 2. "And he opened the bottomless pit, and smoke arose out of that pit, like the smoke of a great furnace. So the sun and the air were darkened because of the smoke of that pit." There's a devilish smoke screen here. There's a choking demon darkness that's going to cover the earth, led by the Prince of Darkness himself. Number three, they are devouring demon spirits. Look, if you will, in verses 3 and 4. "Then out of the smoke locusts came upon the earth, and to them was given power as the scorpions of the earth had power. They were commanded not to harm the grass of the earth, or a green thing, or any tree, but only those men who did not have the seal of God on their foreheads. You know, in the Middle East, history tells us that locusts have come in such swarms that they have literally blotted out the sun. I mean, they've darkened the earth. There's so many. Swarm after swarm of locusts would come, and they would eat every blade of grass. They'd even eat the bark off of trees. And sound would sound like chariots, 100 chariots, rumbling and roaring as they stripped everything on earth. Only these locusts are restricted. They don't eat green things. They feast and feed and devour the souls of men. They are devouring spirits. Like a scorpion, they inflict torment. Number 4, they are debilitating spirits. Debilitating demon spirits. Verses 5 and 6. And they were not given authority to kill them, but to torment them for 5 months. Their torment was like the torment of a scorpion when it strikes a man. In those days, men will seek death and will not find it. They will desire to die, and death will flee from them. Have you ever been stung by a scorpion? I was when I was a boy. We were playing doogies. That's marbles for you younger people. We were playing doogies in that sand in the river bottom. I had a tall is something you hit the other marbles with. It was a steely ball. And I'm telling you, when you hit that marble, it stuck right where you hit it. And the marble would just take off. Well, I hit one of these marbles with my steely ball, and it hit over there in some rocks. So I walked over there in the rocks and reached down to pick up my marble, and I was stung by a scorpion. It hurt. Now, my grandma, my Cherokee grandma, had a solution to everything, she thought. She made a poultice. She got some bread and soaked it with milk and put that on my sting. Now, I have to admit that it helped somewhat, but that thing stung for a long, long time. Can you imagine not one scorpion, but the skies filled with scorpions? And can you imagine being stung and that pain lasting for 5 months with no relief? When that happens, what we call death would be a welcome release. Men will seek death and will not find it. Debilitating demon spirits. Number 5, they are daunting spirits. Daunting demon spirits. Look, if you will, in verse 7. The shape of the locust was like horses preparing for battle. On their heads were crowns of something like gold, and their faces were like the face of men. Now, all of this is highly symbolic. You have to understand that to begin with. But think about these locusts. They're shaped like horses preparing for battle. And they have armor on. And here are these super strong horses snorting, pawing the ground, and they begin running into battle. And the hooves strike fire on the stones. Who can stop them? They are dauntless. So think not only about a swarm of locusts, but think of these as horses Here they come. Not only are they dauntless, but number 6, they are domineering demon spirits. And verse 7 says, and on their heads were, as it were, crowns of gold. Domineering. They have dominion. You know, Satan has always wanted to be like the Most High God. And now they seem to have their day. No one can stop them. These dominating, crown-wearing demon spirits. Number 7, they are deceptive demon spirits. Now the last part of verse 7 says, and their faces were like the face of men. Now in typology, the face of man speaks of intelligence. The Bible speaks of the deception of the devil. And Jesus said, if it were possible, he would deceive the very elect. They are deceptive. And number 8, they are defiling demon spirits. Look at verse 8. And they had hair like a woman's hair, and their teeth were like lions' teeth. Now they have a face like a man, but they have hair like a woman. But there's more. And their teeth are as the teeth of lions. Now, a woman's hair is given to her as a crown. It's beautiful. It's alluring. But here, the idea is of seductiveness. Demons are very seductive. Never, never flirt with the occult. We have millions of people in the cult today and don't even know it. Following a man. They're in a cult. They are seductive, a dark, devilish intelligence. These defiling spirits. Number 9. They are defiant spirits. Look at verse 9. And they had breastplates like breastplates of iron. And the sound of their wings was like the sound of chariots with many horses running into battle. They are cold-hearted. Breastplates like iron. They are unmoved by the pitiful screams of their victims. They come rank after rank. No one can stop them. There's no place to hide. They have breastplates of iron. Number 10. They are durable demon spirits. Durable. Look at verse 10. And they had tails like scorpions, and there were stings in their tails. Their power was to hurt men 5 months. Why 5 months? Again, the symbolism. Remember symbolism of numbers that I talked to you about? 5 and 10 are what? They're symbols of completion. They're going to run their course. No one can stop them. By the way, 5 months is the lifespan of a locust. What's he saying here? He's saying that until God stops them, they will not be stopped. They have power 5 months. They are durable. But thank God he will stop them because God is in control. Now you take all of these things and sum them up. And we say, last of all, they are diabolical demon spirits. Diabolical. Notice in verse 11 and 12. And they had a king over them, the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon, and in Greek his name was Apollyon. One more is past. Behold, still 2 more woes are coming after these things. Now, both of these names, in Hebrew, abandon, and in Greek, apion, means destroyer. Destroyer. So what he's saying is that neither Jew nor Greek are able to escape. No matter what language you speak, he will attack. The king over all these demons from the bottomless pit, his name is Destroyer. One mastermind over the minds of them. That's what we have here. He's built on destruction. What a day that's going to be in the future. Now, folks, don't get hung up on your pastor's interpretation. Don't say, well, he says it's like this and I say it's like that. Don't get hung up on these things. We are dealing with symbolism. But now listen to me. Whatever it means, you don't want to be here. Whatever it means. You put any twist on it you want to. You can say it's literal or symbolic. Slice it any way you want. But I'm telling you, folks, that when you look at all of this, you can understand what Jesus said. Then shall be great tribulation, such as was not from the beginning of time, nor ever shall be. You can understand why the angel is crying, woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth. I don't want my children to be here. I don't want my grandchildren to be here. I don't want you to be here when all this takes place. And I've made plans not to be here. I'm waiting for the rapture. Aren't you? The rest of chapter 9 next time. Let's go to the Lord in prayer, can we? You have requests to be made tonight?